Thank you, Dr. The Said and Dr. Latif, the chair, and inviting me to the very interesting discussion. And as you already explained, I will talk the approaches and adaptation strategy for extreme weather events in agriculture. As I understood from the course structure, it's such a very comprehensive course structure involving so many topics. And I am sure that in the last 4 days, we come across the weather analytics, extreme events, all that kind of things. I'm not going to talk on that again. What I'm talking about, we know that climate change is happening and extreme weather become common, and how we can cope up with that. We cannot change that suddenly because of it is like a natural process, one side, and human interventions exaggerated that process very rapidly, right? So that our human interventions is really playing the big role. So that how best we can build a strategy so we can manage them better. As the core structure is already clearly mentioned that the climate risk assessment and its management through the agro-meteorological approaches, so that I'm looking towards the strategies. So as the Kashmir, when Dr. Latif is invited, and it's become like it's one of my favorite subjects where I work across the Himalayas, and this is one of my core area. I did my PhD there and gap analysis for the biodiversity, mapping all the systems and glaciers and all the related aspects, how the system really changing in the higher altitudes, and how the gap analysis we did in terms of the management, in terms of the livelihoods and biodiversity. And this is where the saffron become my favorite, and even it grown in our own home in the US. So with that, the fantastic, beautiful state of the Kashmir, and I'm sure you're enjoying that. So I'll also give a little bit about, as is talking about the dryland research stations, and we are coming from the dry areas. I'll give a little bit introduction about the ICARDA. It's International Center for Agriculture Research in Dry Areas. It's one of the 15 research centers of the CGIR, Consortium of Interest Agricultural Research. And this is where we work on the dry areas of the world. You can see pretty much, including the North India, Kashmir, to the Central Asia, to the West Asia. And this covers quite a number of large, nearly about 42% of the world area in the dry areas that host nearly 1/3 of the world populations. Often they are like malnutrition and extreme events is so common in these areas. And ICARD is also work on the decentralized strategy. So we work on the different agroecosystems in the component research. I talk about the system research, why it's important in the dry areas and the extreme events. With 5 strategic research thematic areas, we look into genetic resources, adaptation to the climate change, building resilience and promoting the value chain policies, and enhancing the water and land productivity. That as a key, the strategic research thematic area. Then we have the 5 cross-cutting thematic areas, and the data, big data, scaling, and gender, and the capacity building. And as we know that the global challenge is very clear. We are at the crossroads of the world food systems. We cannot continue to be at the current trajectories, and too much eating or the wasting are often the quite a wrong types of the food choices. We have an unsustainable way, and that's triggered. We need to change our adaptive strategy for better management. And COVID is clearly one of the example that how food and nutrition become so important. And in the past, health is just looking at the stable, complete nutrition, complete the health and nutrition, but we never look into the wellness and ecology. This is where I added the health should be the focused on not only ourselves, but ecology and everything around us. So that really brings us the vital food systems. We need a number of other things to be healthy and energetic, but food is one of the things where agriculture plays a big role. And look at the current food systems and planetary health. The most of the productions is outside the planetary health. That means it's not sustainable anymore. That is a huge trigger on what we are facing now, the extreme events in terms of the clearing the forest and land use and cutting the tree for growing the meat or the food we eating now. But that's only few crops, but not the diversified systems. But the health, the experts, the key Lancet recommend that by being the healthy persons and healthy planet and cope up with all the strategies, we need to have at least 50% of the food plate constituted of fruits and vegetables. That really brings the balance agroecosystems. And this is where how much the water we consume per meal in terms of the plant-based versus the animal-based, and also the carbon emissions in terms. That's huge emissions happens on the unsustainable food systems. It not only that, it has impact on our climate, our extreme events. So this is where I'm going to talk on that one, so that you have to move towards the holistic approach of the food management, and that required changing the diet pattern and diversifying systems, because of the crop diversity is one of the key aspect of the building the resilience, adaptive strategy, rebuilding the health of the soil and planet Earth. And this is where I focused a bit on that crop diversity that links to diet diversity and gut biome. So this itself is a big topic to discuss about why gut biome is so important for every aspect of the sustainability and being healthy and resilience to everything and immunity. So this is where I see that as just coming out of the last 1 week on the big data conventions at the global level. And I clearly presented there as well that the next big disruptions is going to happen, that is in agriculture. So that's going to be the what are you talking about, digital strategies, which is economically viable and economically sustainable food systems that are looking not only the food, but the health of the people and planet, that clearly demand a sustainable strategy. As you look into the life as a continuum, as a quantum theory, you can look at that, is that the conditions and processes are linked together. Whether you can take the abiotic stresses, whether climate related, or abiotic stresses related to the plant and all the things going around that, and is often they are linked together. We cannot just go with only only I can look into only climate, climate smart agriculture, or I just only look into the soil, I just look into only the seeds, or the value chain, or the economy. No, it should be everything is interlinked each other. Why? I'm going to tell in the next few slides. So look at stress conditions, whether stress in agriculture, how we can manage assessment of the agriculture and production systems. And it can be biotic or it can be abiotic. And that's revolved around all the aspect here, but I'm only mentioning the few key aspect here. So that it can be soil. There's, I'm sure, like my favorite person, Dr. Lal, is going to talk about the soil and agroecology. He's one of our mentor as well. And I'm not going to touch much on that soil. Of course, this is a very important aspect. And the second comes to the water availability, drought and floods and extreme event that links. Another one is the overall the climatic conditions, whether the frost or early the heat stress conditions, humidity, cloud, all that brings. And other aspect we look into this managing the system adaptiveness. It is a diversity of production systems, crop rotations, the symbiotic assemblages between one species to other species, farming system dynamics. And then comes to the seeds, the biodiversity, the agrobiodiversity, and the sources, how new varieties and underutilized species resistant to the different pests and diseases, all that brings together. And the most important is like what I focused in the experiments as well. And the climate change is the process. It's happening since the millennia. But what is triggering now is we are exaggerated that the event has become the extreme events. And but we not have the strategy to cope up with that. Just compare with a kid coming from the village and a person coming from the city dwelling. If they leave them into the jungle, who can resist to the most that? Exactly, that's what we're going to talk about. That we have to build the resistance systems. We have to build resistance in every level. This is where I focused on the Earth observation, there's big data and smart decisions in every aspect, but looking towards the agroecosystem that is inclusive. So when we look into the soils, that's where my favorite subject as well. Healthy soil is the basis for the healthy life and sustainability and resilience. And if the soil is very healthy and it can resilient and it can hold a better water, the water holding capacity, and it become percolate better, it can supply enough nutrient to the plant to cope with all the extreme events. And if the healthy soil is there and just extremely the events like the floods and drought, we can easily avoid it. That's what we call about the living soil is the basis of the source of the stress-free management in agriculture, so that how we have to build the soil in terms of the crop rotations, in terms of the different management strategies, and as well as the adaptive strategy to build that the resilient systems. Why it's so important here? Because of the climate change is happening, and it is so much of the imbalance in the water system. For example, I'm just talking about the dry areas of the developing world here. And just to give you the example of the Morocco, where our research station is located. And 1 year is very good, means there's a good precipitations. And the following year is very bad, means it's the drought. Basically, it's like a deficit rainfall. And this used to be happen like once in few years, but this is happening so frequently now. That's where we have the issue of imbalanced water systems, and that lead to the number of the farming system dynamics, whether shift in the growing seasons and the pattern, and also like where that is the change in the like onset of the monsoons or the rainfall and the amount of the soil, the water holding capacity that ready to be before the sowing, and all that is changing our growing length of the growing and the system dynamics itself. This really bring back the key aspect of the sustainable management, the agroecosystems that focused on the crop rotations to the building the soil health, and that is required in order to build what you call a stress-free agriculture as management. So this is the key aspect of that one. And this also the agrobiology shouldn't be neglected as well, because of all our coping strategy, most of the things we used to grow in the modified systems, they couldn't resilient anymore. That required to bring back to the gene bank, look at where the stress condition is there, we can bring back. This one like the small experiment, and then the rooftop garden here in Cairo. I went on the modern varieties like a hybrid and with one traditional variety. See that like the heirloom variety can withstand because of this the open pollinator keep on evolving with the climate, but you are changing that to the sequence, then often it's not resilient all the times. So other would be because of the most of the migration happens and the people living in the urban areas, and food travels urban, that's putting a huge impact on the food processes and declining the nutritions as well. As that required bridging the digital strategy so that it can reduce the water and carbon footprint, and also that highly linked to the human-induced climate impact. That's what I'm telling, that if people change to the healthy diets, it's not just about only their health, but they're helping the climate system itself. And this is really that brings back the data-driven decisions. This is where I'm going to talk about the public domain data growing exponentially, especially coming from your mobile, smartphones, and the satellite data, and also a lot of the cloud computing data, the open data cloud. That's really opened up the huge like managing COPAP strategies, and that required a fractal approach and a scale in the management, so that you can look at the big picture, like a region or entire state, like that, or you can go back to the individual landscape, what's called agroecological zones. And within that, we can look in the farming systems, whether the rice-based system or wheat-based systems or mixed systems or orchard or the commercial craft like that, and see how best you can cope up with that. Then looking into those lineage of the varieties, adaptation strategies, systems. And this really brings back the modern system of what we call a digital augmentations for revitalizing the agroecosystems that is really resilient to all the climate impact we talk about it. So that we know that climate change is happening. There is no need of redoing that one. Okay, this climate change, we have to analyze everything. We know that this happening, that one. We know the hot spot where the huge impact is there on an annual basis. But what is required, how best we can do on the real-time basis. So that we are very good in predicting about what is going to happen in the next 100 years, 50 years, but we're not going to be able to tell that it's going to rain tomorrow or not. Is it this is the coming season, growing season, is going to be the normal year or the drought year, or it is the flood year, or still we are struggling that. So what is the focus is that one, instead of going too much of what is going to happen after 50 years, 100 years, 10 years, what I'm looking, what we can build the microsystems at the right moment, so that can tackle all the variations. This brings back to the geotagging, agrotagging, understand the farming typologies and expert knowledge and machine learning algorithms that really design a crop that suits to the particular agroecosystems, so that we become resilient. So take an example of being the unhealthy person, and one you can put into the ICU, put all the life support in the medical systems, he can survive. But without that the systems support, you cannot. But if you build the body itself is resilient, having the healthy food and the exercise and for proper disciplines in our daily life, and that person's who can survive without any of those additional systems. This is what exactly happening in the farming system dynamics. We are putting the too much of fertilizer, pesticide, everything to take care of the like a crop as ICU, rather than the crop they can manage themselves. Like you can take the Kashmir apple, you can grow in Bangalore, providing all the different microclimatic conditions and extensive care, but still you cannot produce the quality of the Kashmir apple. The same thing happens to every crops. We have to design the crops that are the regional specific where they can grow without these conditions. This is where I call the in-season indicators for the site-specific interventions that leads to the web analytics. So making use of all the to make a policy level decisions. We're already into that what we call a tabulating systems. Here everyone is we are the era chip era, and then we're moving to the what's called artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, programming era, and that's data driven. And that then comes to the farm focus, that is the cognitive systems, the local intelligence. So whatever technology, the bookish knowledge, do all the algorithm do until we build that system in the local intelligence. So we have to incorporate the local intelligence. The farmers are so super smart, but you're not taking into account of their super intelligence as well. Just looking like we go something, then advice to that's not going to work out anymore. And we have to build this such a integrated systems approaches to cope up with the strategy. That's where the framework of the data and local intelligence become the framework with the functional domains and integrations and modular and service domains. And just I give you example of pyramid approaches here, just to simplify that. With optimizing the interventions by integrated approach, basically compounding intensifications with diversification, that's what I call a basic unit of building a resilience. That leads to the resilient cropping systems, that choosing the better the crops and integration with livestock and the trees and earth, all them together. And that is where we call together sustainable intensification, choosing the right crop in the right place at the right time. This is very crucial, required. That builds also not to ignore only the productions, but economy is so viable. We cannot think about Z without the meeting the economy. So that you have to look at both financial inclusions, provide the right market to the smallholders, like farms to the plate concept. And now the new technology evolution evolving so rapidly. And that's really one of the era we have to link to that one, how best you can coping status, you can build it. So that someone who produces, like I see, one of my colleagues is the friend, the Ruchit Garg, he built this one, like selling the Kashmir and the Himachal apples to the cities in Bangalore directly for the consumer sitting in an apartment in Bangalore, they can buy the apple in Kashmir. So then he provides that linking them to that one that's directly shipped to there. So this way, the harvested apple directly reach to the consumers the next the day, and secondly also the consumer track how is food is produced, where is produced, and how that is the crux of the what you call the intelligence systems. When you connect to the market and the economic system, that really is going to help. This is where I call a meta-analysis and data source, algorithms, analytics, and decisions. It's happening everywhere. Look at the agronomy, look at the conditions, look at the crops, look at the soils, genomics, weather, and it's happen. But what you require a meta-analysis, bring them together as a one system. This is where the adaptive strategy is focused completely. For example, here when COVID hit, we just went to the online systems and machine learning, track that one, and how best you can rapidly map that one where the harvest is delayed because of the lockdown in India. That clearly showing that you can go online with all the tools available. We can see how this delay in the progress of the harvesting, and that really helps us to bring strategies. That's also the delay in harvesting of the rice, its impact on the subsequent crop growing seasons. And also if you look into long-term analysis, where are those the systems is collapsing? Is that because of our wrong cropping systems, the crop rotations, or we are just relying on too much of the inputs and too much of the water use? That's what they did it for the MENA regions in Egypt. All that yellow area showing that the yield and productivity is declining. They're not become any more resilient. And this is where we need to understand the analytics very systematically and quantify the key factor at multiple scales. It can be yield variabilities, it can be rotations, it can be management practices, it can be water use and yield gaps, and all that things you can doable on the fingertips because of the machine learning algorithms and the real-time data and analytics and weather engine, all them put together, understand the agriculture productivity, which is really resilient and sustainable in terms of the context and the options, and why one farmer is doing good profit and next one is losing this profit. All that needs to be understand this analytics. So this brings back to the fingerprinting of the farming systems. Dr. Sayed, warn me if time we are right on time or still we are going too fast.
No issue, sir.
Okay, fantastic. So, I'm going too fast or too slow, please warn me. I can go slow. If you want slow, I can go slow. And if you're the right, okay, I can go in that phase because I know that is the number of disciplines coming different, like a large number of the groups. Someone already understand all this terminology, jargons, but someone may not be. And I try to not using the too much of scientific words. I'm trying to put all these things very layman because of and the English is not my major language because of I studies in my local language until my PUC. So I'm not a good English speaker. So I hope that's okay with everyone.
No, sir. It's not like that. You're speaking good fast.
Yeah, I just I try to avoid that all this the big computer jargons in this year, and but still something comes in like. Here, I just giving an example of how we can build a strategy, like the fingerprinting of the farming system and dynamics. I look at this one picture, you can see it's just like anyone can guess what it is. I'm sure just a rice field and harvested rice field. Why is so much of the colorful it is? It is how the satellite remote sensing can look at it, hyperspectral look at it. So that there was some of the field you can see in the corner. They are these are the residue burn. There's one of the biggest issue in the North India. So like after the crop is harvested, residue burn. And somewhere is like a very dark green, something like that. There's early harvested rice. The return crops come back and maybe there's a weed still they're making the green. Some are completely harvested late because of the soil is very dry and no biomass left. So this kind of analytics really telling that so much variability in the rice field itself in a very small area. Think about the India like such a big system and so many cropping systems, complex system research is working all the times. And this is where required understand how our farming system really happening, why that change is happening. Can you be able to map that the fallow dynamics, whether it's single cropped area, it's a double cropped area, why single double crop is matters to us in terms of the food and everything, why one farm to other farm is so different, is that because of each farmer's the producing the different rice varieties or the different management practices, the agronomic practices and input efficiency, all that matters to understand. This is able to track that the systems happening that, and also the dynamics. You can look into all the dynamics happening in the large scale. I'm just putting the double crop dynamics here, and every year you can change that how the double crops is keep on changing. It's depend upon on our onset of the monsoons, kharif and rabi seasons. That has a huge impact on itself on building the resilience systems. And we also looking into the gaps between the two crops, how best you can make use of that. Here, example, like after the rice, the harvested, and before going to the next crop, there is a window between the short window between these two crops. That's what we call the kharif fallow or the rabi fallow. And that fallow we can really use to the based on the residual soil moisture and the nutrient coming from the previous crops, and you can grow under the resilient crop like legumes or vegetables and nitrogen fixing like rotations crops that really can help the soil to rebuild so that the next monsoon starts, so that soil is well prepared. There's a lot of enough the organic carbon, organic residue sitting on the soil surfaces. This is where like I call the resilient system can build, and also not just only the building the soil, the income we can reach that one. For example, when you call the systemic innovations in diversify the crops with the crop diversifications, we can map that all the system what's happening there individual level, and when the crop season started, when it ended, what is the length of the crop growing seasons, and how that's impact the different levels of the adaptation of the different varieties. So that's where the build the adaptation strategy, so that even climate changing, even the more like a heat, the expected heat waves, or that you can bring the drought adjustment varieties. It's going to be the more the floody situations, and then waterlogging situation, being the waterlogged resistant variety. Like that, I'm just giving the example. Then you can look in the track that systems. You adopted, you can growing that one, you can track the real time, how the farm systems behaving there, where I'm making the progress in the state, where my implemented things, where I did the regressions is happening there. And I just give the example, taking the example of the West Bengal. This is popular. I just the talking one subject, but we can talk any farming system dynamics here. And when the rice is harvested, when doing the real-time mapping, the rice is harvested, tracking that almost like every daily basis, means like every 3 to 4 days based on the availability of the satellite data. In the, like here we're targeting with the sentinel for every 5 days. Then you can aggregate all the rice harvested into the month. You can just, of course, for simplicity, I just aggregated them into the monthly. And this is what show the amount of all the rice varieties harvested in the month of October, and the corresponding real-time the soil moisture, because if the still rainfall is there in October, but most of the soil is still wet, and also the what's called static maps that's showing the too much of the fallows. Then second, look into the you can map real-time every week, every week, every week. Then you can look at the month of November. Oh, these many the areas the rice is harvested in month of November. Similarly, you can do for every month. Then you can December. That clearly shows that the three different rice dominant varieties are planted. The rice, the short duration rice, mid duration rice, and long duration rice. That provide the kind of a rice varieties are planted. But also you might have noticed that the corresponding the soil moisture dynamic changing. When the rice is harvested end of the month December, and most of the soils are dry, and that left with a little the window for growing in their crop. So here they give the real analytics to go back. Okay, all those farmers in the blue color, the zone, whether they can adapt to the mid duration and short duration variety so that they can grow the entire crop. All that kind of analytics bring together, and you can tell that where particular season, this season, I can grow rice in this area. Sorry, the legumes like food legumes, lentil, chickpea, like that. And where I can grow the vegetables, as you see example here for this one. Then also link that into the number of the market dynamics and value chains, the dal mills and the storage, where I can put the seed hubs. If you do that within within the season before even planting the next crops, that already tell the lot of the adaptation strategy you can do. So you can scale that easily into the any other state. So that scaling is not a big, because we are working on the satellite data and the real-time analysis. And then we are as populations and the citizen science is access to the mobile applications drastically increasing, so that you can provide this kind of the analytics. They can able to see what's happening there in their own systems and market analytics, and transfer what we are doing at individual farm level, individual the lab. We can bring them to the real farming system dynamics, so that we have to build a strategy in such a way that what I call inclusive farming. Inclusive farming is so essential in order to build the future of the like a post-COVID landscape. It's a wellness industries. We all talk about the health of the people, health of the animals, health of the farming systems, health of the planet. So that wellness because going to play the biggest role here. This is where all this adaptation strategy comes into picture. Not just only looking into the analytics of this, the weather things, but we have to really look at how best you can solve that problems on the ground. And this really brings it to the what inclusive systems. We know that our farming systems yearly the collapsed is broken, or we're not broken, but at least the adaptive strategy is not there enough to be cope up with the changing climate. So that we go back to our system of farming, and where the farmers can still grow their essential the nutrient food to feed himself and his family, because of when he sell the industry monocropping and can buy the needs for him, so that he have to sell most of his produce to buy. Then also he can grow the premium quality produce so that he can make the money. So that you have to build into that together adaptive strategy for the health of the farmer, health of the people. That's all are co-linked to each other. So this is where I would call that is where the strategies we have to look at it. And this you have to bring into the real-time system. That's where I give the example of the rice, but it can apply to the any crops. Whether it can be cotton, whether it can be wheat, and a number of other crops can be adopted that because still a small holders feed the world. 80% of the world, the nutrition would still come from the 20% of the smallholders of the world. The industrial agriculture is there, but there's most of their produce go to the feedlots, producing the other factory-related aspect, factory food. But smallholders they play the biggest role. That is where the adaptation strategy really need, like a country like India. And the biodiversity and cropping system dynamics, crop diversifications, it should be the core of the systems research. And I'm giving just example here. When you go for the drip irrigated the cotton, then there's so much space and the gap is there. How best you can make use of the same investment infrastructure? I can grow the 78 crops in the same, like that. You're growing like a number of the greens and vegetables in that one. So by the time it reaches to the canopy cover of the cotton, the farmers are already harvested 60 crops. Like a farmer become like kind of a salaried person's get income almost like every month, and his compound productivity is much higher than the monocropping, so that he resilient himself to build his own nutrition needs and build the soil, then also reduce inputs because of the growing so much of symbiotic relations in the cropping systems that really bring the IPM the strategy while managing the pest and disease in the cotton. And so that you don't need to spend the money on paying the chemicals, and that's taken care of that, so that reducing the input and the maximum the profit. So that is where, so this really we try to understand this kind of the analytics in the real time, the farming level, understand how my crop health is doing at the given seasons, if the climate variability is there, and how the farm management in terms of nutrient, whether nitrogen, phosphorus, and those things, and soil organic carbon. And that's where we can look into predicted parameters that can feed into the mobile applications and real-time web analytics to understand what is my farm is worth of in the given seasons, in the coming seasons. So is that my gap, there is the yield is there, yield still gap is there, how best I can cope up with that, what kind of the right crop can choose. So this is where I would say that adaptation strategy is very vital for the building the climate resilient extreme weather events is going to happen. It's not in our control, but what is in our control, how to cope up with that, how to build our own strategy to do that. So it's going to be the slide on that. I hope I'm on time. And way forward and collective actions is the key for the strategy. So agriculture is still a single largest user of the water resources and input to use resources, and also the unfortunately the carbon emissions as well. And but it's also single largest, strongest level to lift the poverty, achieve the UN SDGs if you link into the healthy production systems. So there's enough mature technological innovations, digital tools available, and that required to build a adaptive strategy, and in combining the citizen science. That really leads to the site-specific interventions and the deploying the adaptation strategy. So we have to focus on the farming systems as well by looking into the climate, the local, what's happening along with the regional climate scenarios and strategies. So there's a certainly need to work in the framework of the agroecosystems. You cannot remove the ecosystems out of the agriculture. It should be part of that. This is what I call a holistic management at system level. You have to look at every aspect, not only just the crop. You have to look at the soil, the market, analytics, nutrition, the pest and disease management, inputs use, the nutritions, all that bring the per health acre, like a health per acre. That should be our focus. And this really required a inclusive strategy in order to bring the smallholders, since like 80, 100 years, and the farmers still the sufferer. And how best we can build the strategy, they can lift the farmers out of that poverty. And that really not only lifting the farmer poverty, but it's like that's bringing the strategy, adaptive strategy for everywhere. That's really what I call they close the gaps in terms of everywhere. Gaps in terms of the productivity, yield, nutrition, data, and health and ecosystem services, but that required a collective actions. Is what I would like to say. This really follow what you called in ecological term, production follows functions. So there's enough technology available. Let's leverage the technology and the diversity and local intelligence to rebuild the broken food systems for healthy living and planetary health. So with that, I'm happy to say thank you for this wonderful organizers bringing this course, and that reach out to the nearly 500, I guess, registered, but they're because of the space they allowing only 200. So this is a sitting somewhere the remote places I can able to reach to the 350 people. That's amazing. The technological innovations bringing it here. So if there's still the time is not a limitations, and I'm happy to take up any questions related to the systems.
Well, thank you. It was nice, informative presentations that we have in this first session of day 5. If the participants has any query,
By the
any
way, I
sort of
not see any
discussions
participants.
they want to ask our
Running the different
speaker,
sessions or what?
they're free to ask, or they can put the questions. But
Just we are a holiday, sir. Everyone could not join today, sir. Otherwise, we are having above
No.
200 participants in every lecture.
Okay, that's okay.
Today is Dasara holiday in India.
Oh yeah, that's true. But amazing. Thank you for all the 170 plus people attended today.
This is one. One query is from the Dr. Pavan Kumar Reddy from Angrao. We have one agriculture industry at Angrao, Hyderabad. The mobile application you have shown in our slides of GIS is open source or it is paid software from ICADA?
We are just building this one like this new versions is still, we are going to be the open source only. But ICADA is being a what's called non-profit. We are not tell anything. So it's obviously open. So that we are going to release the new versions. What I just discussed about that. We are existing GeoAgro app is there, but that speak to the particular project. But we are going to build one that is going to the public domain soon.
Okay. So just for sake of our knowledge, since ICADA dry areas are the major focus areas of the research, so for even this institute is concerned, we have in Kashmir certain dry areas where we usually grow for the maize. And then if you analyze, if we see the data, long sets data of the weather, they clearly indicates that snowfall or rainfall is now decreasing. So for our Kashmir region is concerned, I'm looking at sort of collaboration with ICADA. How best ICADA will help us in collaborating certain research work based upon focusing our dry areas, sir. Is there
the ICADA, all the dry areas of the India is already part of the ICADA's mandate strategy, where we are working on that. And also now the new strategy, what we're working toward, what's called the Dry Arc Initiative, they're covering all that region. And certainly if there is the collaborative systems, we need to look at it, and that certainly we can elaborate, because of we are looking at a system approach for the building the strategy. And of course the climate change is also the core of that one, including the varieties, those things. And of course the maize are not our called a strategic crop. It is our the sisterly center limit. We have the 1560 center that's there, but we are closely working. But anyway, in the future, the next year onwards, and it's going to be the only one CGIR. All the centers merging together into one CGIR. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, certainly. Let me know, so that if you're looking at the particular area of interest and what kind of the collaborations we're expecting, what we're expecting from this end, and like that, certainly we can explore it.
Okay. Dr. Latif, will you take some questions? There are a few questions more.
Questions more in the question answer box. Sir, one from Mali Bijani. In India, sir, in India, other sectors using data analysis and artificial intelligence so well and growing, but agriculture is still lagging from that benefit, and we are using more time-consuming process like soil health card. How can we increase the use of AI and data analysis in Indian agriculture system?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting questions asked by the Emali Bizani. So that's where I'm not sure whether there's yesterday only we concluded the big data in agriculture, the global conventions attended by nearly about 3,000 plus people, about 1 million reach out, and that is very discussed about exactly about this one. So that AI machine learning is happened in the medical research quite long, but that's not really the progress into the agriculture, because it's one of the. This is where the new strategy we're building up. working on that, working that. So this already a lot of the algorithms. You can look into all the market analysis. So it's growing substantially. Pardon me, someone is asking me.
Sir, then one more question from B. Patil, US Dharwad. What is the role of big data for creating resilience in agriculture?
Yeah, so thanks, the Sumo, for asking that is very relevant, correct? I think many people ask that. If you go through the entire my session from today's the beginning to end, it's all talking about the big data building the resilience. So I talk about resilience here, system approach, like agronomy. So it's one of the key for that. That's what we're talking about, excellence in agronomy. And I'm leading the one of the case for this new the EIA, excellence in agronomy for 2030. And this is where exactly we're looking into the data dynamics and the focused on the crop rotations and bringing the crop diversity and focused on the soil health. I think these three aspects will be really the build resilience. And of course, the market analytics. That's what exactly my entire topic today. Thanks for the question, sir.
Sir, one question, sir. How much time it will take for Indian farmers to switch to this high-tech farming?
So farmers, we're not talking about the high-tech farming, talking about the high-tech information delivery. So we not want to like what the precision agriculture US did. We're not looking towards that the input oriented agriculture system. That's not available. That's not valid for India. The farmers cannot buy the IoTs tools and so that what is required. What I talking about is like the making the precision agriculture affordable to the smallholders. That's basically rely on this kind of the web analytics and machine learning, so that the farmers pick up his locations farm, so that he can able to know that whether he can grow the right crop in a given season, he can grow the something like that, but where he can sell the best possible price, where he can link the market systems, and because of the production is not a one issue, produce, but the price is not there, where the most farmers suffer. And this is where doubling in income for doubling the farm income is not just only the focused on the increasing the yield, but providing the right market price and reducing input efficiency. All that together, this is where the new system of the digital agriculture is heading towards. Digital agriculture, implementation, what I talked about this session. So, yeah.
Sir, one more question from Aruna Mohan. Is there any universal system for this nutrient decision support system?
Pardon me, universal?
No, sir, it's from Aruna Mohan. Is there any universal system which will detect that, which will give us the nutrient decision support system?
It's no universal because we have to the farm focus and it depend upon the location-based services. So we have to design that in the particular agroecosystems. So then we can provide. Of course, it can be scaled into the any different agroecologies in different countries. It's possible, but what is required? The initial the setup the like machine learning algorithm trained for particular agroecosystems, so that farmer, for example, take you are a farmer and you can your farm and you can mark your boundary of your farm, and you can provide that I'm growing the like this crop and like that couple of seasons. So that really helps train the algorithms to see detect the crops, and then also looking at all the what in my slide I showed a while ago, and that links to the like all these kind of analytics, the what you call soil health card, or what you're providing that like take long time. Now we can do that in a fraction of time. So like if you click that when you get all this parameter, then recommended the crops and recommended the rotations and recommended the input that can provide. This is where we're really looking to that kind of applications.
Actually, these apps are all location specific.
We no, not any options because of the you cannot go with this generalized because of the when the complex systems you're working, we should be the location specific. That's where the data driven economy works with locations. You cannot be the blanket application like and what you're doing now like the soil health card. We are putting application for the entire the area into the one nitrogen application. That's not true because of the every farmer. One farmer is already applying too much nitrogen. Other farmer next to him is not applying enough, and that but blanket applications with the same rate end up in we are excess or under applications. So this is where the new system analytics looking at the individual farm level, farming system.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for such a nice lecture and sparing your valuable time. So Dr. Shiraz, please you proceed.
Thank you. Thank
Hello,
you, Dr. Latif.
sir.
And yes, Swiss.
Sir, can I ask one question, sir? I have one question.
Oh, yes, that's yes.
Please.
Yes, sir. I have a question regarding sir Google Earth Engine, sir. How can I get know-how of Google Earth Engine, sir?
Yeah, yesterday only we gave a very interesting the online lecture, online training sessions for the Google Earth Engine. There is a lot of this Earth Engine. Like you can go to the Google Earth Engine. So that is now there's number of the open source the applications available, and if you want to learn the Google Earth Engine, if you have a little bit of the basic the background on programming, and
Yes,
you can
sir.
easily pick up. There's so much of the online materials is already thrown in the Google community, and also there is like the Facebook group is nearly about 20,000 people, and they are the group you can join there. The Google Earth Engine group in the Facebook, they can throw the question, they can get. It's such a wonderful community to like helping each other. And but the best advice for if you want to really interest in the Google Earth, that is the future of the remote sensing analytics, because of the Google Earth is host nearly 64 years of like a of the data sets, all kinds of the remote sensing data, whether you can take the MODIS and the Landsat and Sentinel, Planet Lab, all the data sitting there one side. Second, all the weather, Google Earth Engine weather engine, it has all the climate data sets sitting there. And so that we have the soil data, we have the geographic data, and we have all the topographic data, and all the multi-criteria analysis data sets that's sitting in the Google. So that you no need to download that tool data to your computer to do the process. Even simple like your mobile and your small computer, just able to write a few script. You can link it to the Google data and can use the Google supercomputer to process. You get the output just like in order to develop like the Kashmir land use land cover map. So if you have some ground truth data control points, you can do it for like a few fraction of a second. And instead of downloading up to 20 to 30 terabytes of the data, of the satellite data processing, you can just get the final output. And that's just a few MB to download to your G drive. That way, so this is the most powerful. I think this is where most of the analysis they will focus.
Sir, actually, sir, I have 300 ground truthing points from 2 districts of Kashmir, sir. Sir, I want to do the land use, land cover analysis of that same area, where I can get the full code so that I can extract that from Google.
I think, yeah, there's quite a bit of those basic, like if you when you install the Google Earth engine, and you can log in using Gmail account, and then there is a lot of already existing the scripts sitting there in the Google Earth engine. You can use them, you can modify them, and although the classification algorithms already sitting there, so you can use them to write your own code.
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Okay, sir.
So this requires some little bit like the learning curve, but learning curve so that you can pick up easily. There's a lot of the communities also there, and often like like we organized in the big data conventions the day before yesterday. There is the high what's called the rapid mapping and the real-time mapping. The Google Earth in short courses like we usually do online courses like that do once in a while. And also the CGR, CS community. I'm sure like you can search the Google Earth Engine courses. There are so many people are organizing already. So you can make use of those kind of things to do.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Awais, for having the interaction with the respected speaker. I take this opportunity in the end to thank Professor Brother, Head of Geoinformatics and Research Data Management, CADA. On behalf of organizing committee, I thank you very much, sir, for having a nice informative session with us, for joining us, for having the wonderful interaction and question answer session with our participants. Thank you very much, sir. But before you leave, may I request you for a group photograph, sir, and I would request all participants to open up the cameras for a group photograph.
This they have been doing virtual group photograph. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
May I request all the panelists, all the attendees attending this program to open up the cameras for a photograph.
Sir, can we end the screen show so that we can get full view of sir photographs?
So you can stop screen sharing, sir.
Yeah, yes.
Stop the screen sharing. That's better.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
So is it okay now?
Yeah.
I forgot to stop the screen showing. Sorry for that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Done? I think you have to click screenshots.
Okay, done, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Latif
you.
and Syed, and all the participants. Despite of the festival seasons, your the presence. That's very good, and I hope so useful to everyone. And if it is useful, thumbs up or thumbs down, please do it.
Very much useful, sir, and we'll be inshallah in a good touch with you in our future endeavors, sir. This was a nice informative lecture from your end, sir.
It's my pleasure.
And
So
thank you
good
once
day.
again, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yep. So thank you so much. Take care.
You.
Have a good day and wonderful seasons and happy Navratri and happy Vijayadashami Dasara. So we're celebrating right there. So take care.
Bye. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Take care, sir. Well.